Hey everyone, welcome back to the Truly Criminal Network. The night of March 12, 2025 began like any other at Mama's Bar and Grill in South Memphis. The music was loud, drinks were flowing, and patrons were enjoying themselves after a long day. No one could have predicted that by the early morning hours, a respected community leader would lie dead on the pavement outside, with a single gunshot wound that would end his life and spark questions that would divide an entire city. Pastor Ricky Floyd wasn't just any Memphis resident. He was a pillar of the community, co-founder of the Pursuit of God Transformation Center, mentor to countless young men, and husband to Sheila Floyd. For over 2 decades, he had built a reputation as a man dedicated to faith, social justice, and uplifting the underserved neighborhoods of Memphis. So what was he doing at a bar at 1 a.m.? And how did a theological discussion escalate to the point where Samantha Marion, a 42-year-old local woman with no previous criminal history, felt so threatened that she retrieved a gun from her vehicle and fired a single fatal shot? Let me pause right there, because I know what you're thinking. The title of this video mentions a secret lover, but I want to address that immediately. According to all available evidence and police reports, there was no romantic relationship between Pastor Floyd and Samantha Marion. They had no prior connection whatsoever before that fatal night. This wasn't a crime of passion between lovers. It was a spontaneous confrontation between strangers that escalated beyond anyone's expectations. This contradiction between sensational headlines and documented facts is exactly why we need to examine cases like these carefully. The truth is often more complex and thought-provoking than any headline could capture. Tonight, we're going to walk through every moment of that fateful evening, from Pastor Floyd's evangelism attempts inside the bar to the heated argument that spilled into the parking lot. We'll explore what witnesses saw, what the surveillance footage revealed, and the crucial moments that transformed a verbal disagreement into a deadly encounter. But this isn't just about recounting events. I want us to consider a deeper question. How thin is the line between self-defense and overreaction? At what point does fear justify lethal force? And how do we reconcile the positive impact of a community leader with actions that may have contributed to his own death? Before we continue this journey together, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Our community here at Truly Criminal Network doesn't just consume true crime. We analyze it, learn from it, and use these stories to become more aware of the complex dynamics that can turn ordinary situations deadly. Drop a comment below sharing your initial thoughts. Have you ever witnessed a heated argument that made you fear for someone's safety? What de-escalation techniques do you think might have prevented this tragedy? Your experiences matter, and they add valuable perspective to our discussion. Let's dive into the life of Pastor Ricky Floyd, the man whose public ministry and private actions created a contradiction that ultimately led to his untimely death on a Memphis street corner at the age of 57. To understand the magnitude of what happened that night in March 2025, we need to understand who Pastor Ricky Floyd was to Memphis. His story wasn't just about Sunday sermons. It was about transforming a community that many had given up on. While details about Floyd's early years aren't extensively documented, what we do know is that he emerged as a force for change in Memphis, particularly in neighborhoods that struggled with poverty, crime, and lack of opportunity. His vision wasn't just spiritual salvation. It was about practical, tangible improvement in people's everyday lives. In 2002, alongside his wife Sheila, Pastor Floyd founded the Pursuit of God Transformation Center. Now that name tells you everything you need to know about their mission. This wasn't just another church. The word transformation was central to their vision. They weren't content with maintaining the status quo. They wanted to fundamentally change lives, families, and streets that had been overlooked for generations. When you drive through Fraser today, one community member told me, you can point to buildings, programs, and even people who are standing because of Pastor Floyd's efforts. He didn't just talk about change, he built it with his own hands. The Pursuit of God became known for its holistic approach. Sunday services were just the beginning. During the week, the center hosted job training workshops, financial literacy classes, counseling sessions, and youth programs. They organized community cleanups and neighborhood watch initiatives. Pastor Floyd understood that faith without action wasn't enough to lift a community. But his vision extended beyond one church. Floyd established Salvation Revelation Ministries, a nonprofit organization dedicated to three key pillars: soul winning, family restoration, and leadership development. This organization served as an umbrella for multiple community initiatives, allowing him to secure funding and resources for projects that went beyond traditional ministry. One of the most impactful aspects of his community work was his management of Eden Estates apartments in the Fraser area. These weren't just housing units. They represented dignity for families who had been pushed to the margins. Floyd ensured that these apartments remained safe, affordable, and well-maintained, providing stability for residents who often had few other options. What set Pastor Floyd apart from many religious leaders was his specific focus on mentoring men and rebuilding family structures. He created the Husband Institute, a program teaching men how to be better partners, fathers, and community members. As a curriculum coordinator for Manhood University, he worked with young men who had grown up without father figures, teaching them skills ranging from conflict resolution to financial management. Former participants in these programs described transformative experiences. "Before I met Pastor Floyd, I was angry at the world," one graduate of Manhood University told local news after Floyd's death. "He showed me that my anger was really pain, and that pain could be channeled into purpose. He didn't just change my life, he saved it." City officials recognized the value of Floyd's work as well. Memphis Mayor Paul Young had previously praised the pastor's efforts to bridge divides between law enforcement and communities of color. Several city council members had partnered with Floyd's organizations on various initiatives, recognizing that his grassroots approach often succeeded where government programs had failed. Behind the public figure was a family man. Those who knew Pastor Floyd personally described him as a devoted husband to Sheila, his partner in both ministry and life. Together, they modeled the family values they preached, mentoring younger couples and opening their home to those in need. Pastor Floyd and First Lady Sheila demonstrated what partnership looks like, a church member explained. They complemented each other's strengths and worked as a unit. Their marriage wasn't perfect. They were transparent about their challenges, but they showed us how to work through difficulties together rather than apart. What makes his death all the more jarring is the contrast between the man who dedicated decades to building community and the man involved in that late-night confrontation. How could someone who taught conflict resolution become entangled in a dispute that ended in violence? How could a mentor to countless young men find himself in a situation where his actions might have contributed to his own demise? This contradiction isn't just perplexing, it's at the heart of what makes this case so complex and thought-provoking. The same passion that drove his community work may have manifested differently that night at Mama's Bar and Grill. March 12, 2025 was an ordinary Wednesday in Memphis. The workday had ended, and Mama's Bar and Grill in South Memphis was filling up with its usual weeknight crowd. People unwinding after work, friends meeting for drinks, couples on casual dates. The establishment was known for its relaxed atmosphere, affordable drinks, and lively social scene. Security cameras would later confirm that Pastor Ricky Floyd entered the premises around 11:30 p.m. But why would a respected pastor be at a bar that late on a weeknight? According to multiple witnesses, Pastor Floyd wasn't there to drink or socialize. He was doing what many who knew him described as street ministry. He carried religious pamphlets and approached patrons, initiating conversations about faith, morality, and salvation. He would start with casual questions about what people believed, said one regular at Mama's who witnessed Floyd's interactions that night. Then he'd steer the conversation toward his church and invite people to Sunday service. Most people were polite, but not really interested. For the first hour or so, these interactions remained largely peaceful, if somewhat awkward. While some bar-goers engaged with Floyd out of curiosity, others politely declined his overtures. The atmosphere changed, however, when he approached Samantha Marion's table around 12:45 a.m. Marion, a 42-year-old Memphis resident, was at the bar with two friends. According to those friends, the group had been discussing personal issues and wasn't looking to engage with strangers. When Floyd approached their table with religious material, Marion initially responded the way many others had that night, with a polite but firm decline. What happened next diverged from the other interactions Floyd had experienced. Instead of moving on to another table, he persisted with Marion, questioning her moral choices and suggesting she needed spiritual guidance. The conversation quickly evolved from a one-sided evangelism attempt into a heated theological debate. You could tell right away this was different. One bartender later told police. His body language changed. He leaned in more, spoke louder. She started recording him on her phone, which seemed to make him more agitated. Security footage from inside the bar, which lacks audio but shows the interaction clearly, reveals a moment when Floyd suddenly reached out and grabbed Marion's phone from her hand. In what appears to be a burst of frustration, he threw the device across the table. Seconds later, he also grabbed a beer can and threw it, spilling alcohol across the table and onto Marion's clothing. Bar staff intervened at this point, separating the two and asking Floyd to leave the premises. He complied initially, walking outside into the parking lot. Marion and her friends remained inside for approximately 15 minutes, presumably discussing the incident and deciding what to do next. According to Marion's statement to police, she and her friends decided it was time to leave, believing Floyd had departed. But as Marion's group exited Mama's bar around 1:10 a.m., they discovered Floyd waiting in the parking lot. The outdoor security cameras captured what happened next. Floyd approached Marion again, gesturing animatedly. Though we don't have audio of this exchange, witnesses reported hearing raised voices. The body language visible in the footage shows Marion backing away while Floyd moved toward her, narrowing the distance between them repeatedly. He kept pointing at her, getting close, then backing up, then getting close again. A witness who was smoking outside the bar told investigators. She kept saying, "Please leave me alone and stay away from me," but he wouldn't stop. The South Memphis night was unseasonably warm for March, and the parking lot was illuminated only by the bar's exterior lights and nearby street lamps. Several bystanders had gathered to watch the confrontation, but no one intervened, a fact that would later haunt some witnesses. Marion continued retreating toward her vehicle, with Floyd following. At one point, he appeared to lunge forward, causing Marion to quickly move behind her car door. This moment, captured frame by frame in the security footage, would later become crucial in the legal proceedings surrounding the case. What neither Floyd nor the onlookers knew was that Marion had a legally registered firearm in her vehicle. As the confrontation continued to escalate, with Floyd's movements becoming increasingly unpredictable, Marion made a decision that would permanently alter both their lives and send shockwaves through the Memphis community. The security footage from Mama's Bar and Grill captured the final moments in stark detail. At 1:14 a.m., as Samantha Marion reached her vehicle, she quickly opened her driver's side door and positioned herself behind it. Pastor Floyd continued advancing toward her, his gestures becoming increasingly animated. She kept telling him to back away. A witness later testified. You could hear the fear in her voice. She was scared, and he wasn't listening. In a decision that would forever change the course of events, Marion reached into her vehicle and retrieved a handgun, a weapon she was legally permitted to carry. According to her later statement, she believed displaying the firearm would deter Floyd and end the confrontation. Instead, security footage shows Floyd pausing only momentarily before continuing to advance. "Stay back," Marion shouted, according to multiple witnesses. "Please, just leave me alone." But the confrontation had escalated beyond verbal de-escalation. At approximately 1:17 a.m., with Floyd just a few feet away and still advancing, Marion fired a single shot. The bullet struck Floyd in the chest. He collapsed immediately onto the asphalt parking lot. The reaction was immediate. Several bystanders rushed to Floyd's side while others called 911. Marion herself, according to police reports, also called emergency services and remained at the scene. She was in complete shock, the bartender who witnessed the shooting told investigators. She kept saying, "I didn't want to do that," over and over. She wasn't trying to run or hide what happened. Emergency medical services arrived within 7 minutes of the first 911 call. Despite their swift response and attempted resuscitation efforts, Pastor Ricky Floyd was pronounced dead at the scene at 1:32 a.m. One responding paramedic noted that the single gunshot had struck a major artery, causing rapid blood loss that would have been difficult to survive even with immediate medical attention. News of the shooting spread quickly through Memphis. By sunrise, small gatherings had formed outside both the Pursuit of God Transformation Center and Mama's Bar and Grill. Many brought flowers, candles, and handwritten notes. The contradiction was striking. A man of faith dying outside a bar in the early morning hours. Take a moment to think about this. How many times have we seen situations that could have been resolved through conversation instead escalate to violence? If you've ever witnessed or experienced a heated confrontation, share your thoughts in the comments below. What strategies have you used to de-escalate tense situations? Your insights might help someone else avoid tragedy. And if you're finding value in understanding these complex human dynamics, hit that subscribe button and join our community of critical thinkers. As Memphis awakened to the news, the response from city officials was immediate. Mayor Paul Young issued a statement by mid-morning. Today, Memphis has lost a dedicated community servant whose work transformed countless lives. While we await full details of this tragic incident, we ask the community to remember the positive impact Pastor Floyd had on our city while respecting the investigative process. Multiple city council members echoed these sentiments, highlighting Floyd's contributions to urban renewal and youth mentorship programs. Social media platforms overflowed with personal testimonials from community members whose lives had been touched by Floyd's ministry. The Pursuit of God Transformation Center became a gathering for mourners. Sheila Floyd, now suddenly widowed, displayed remarkable composure as she addressed the congregation during an impromptu prayer service the evening after the shooting. "My husband lived his life serving others," she told the overflow crowd. "His work was about reconciliation and healing. In this moment of pain, we must embody those same principles." The funeral, held at Greater Amani Church on March 28th, drew an estimated crowd of over 700 mourners. The service lasted nearly 4 hours as speaker after speaker shared stories of Floyd's impact. Religious leaders from across denominational lines attended, a testament to Floyd's ability to build bridges within the faith community. One of the most powerful moments came when a young man who had graduated from Floyd's mentorship program approached the podium. "Pastor Floyd found me when I was at my lowest," he said, his voice breaking. "He didn't just tell me I could be better, he showed me how. He walked beside me. That's who he was. Not perfect, but persistent in his belief that people could change." As the funeral procession traveled through Memphis, streets lined with residents paying their respects highlighted the complex emotions surrounding Floyd's death. Grief for a loss, celebration of a life lived in service, and lingering questions about the night that ended it all. In the days following the shooting, attention turned to Samantha Marion, the woman who pulled the trigger that night. Who was she? And how did she end up in this life-altering confrontation? At 42, Marion lived a relatively quiet life before becoming entangled in this high-profile case. Neighbors described her as private but friendly, someone who went to work, came home, and occasionally socialized with a small circle of friends. Unlike Pastor Floyd, she had no public profile or community leadership role. Her family members emphasized that she had no history of violence or criminal behavior. "Sam has always been someone who avoids conflict," her sister told local reporters. "She's the one who walks away from arguments, not starts them. This situation goes against everything I know about my sister." Marion's actions both during and after the confrontation paint a complex picture. Before the shooting, she recorded parts of their interaction on her phone, a detail her defense team would later highlight as evidence she wasn't looking for trouble, but rather documenting what she perceived as harassment. Immediately after firing the fatal shot, Marion called 911 herself and remained at the scene until police arrived. Body camera footage from responding officers shows Marion visibly distressed, repeatedly asking about Floyd's condition and explaining that she felt threatened by his persistent approaches despite her requests for him to stop. Following her arrest, jail officials placed Marion on suicide watch, a standard procedure in high-profile cases, but one that her attorney suggested reflected her genuine remorse and the psychological impact of taking another person's life. Marion had no prior history of mental health challenges, making her acute distress all the more notable to those monitoring her condition. The Memphis Police Department launched a comprehensive investigation immediately after the shooting. Crime scene technicians recovered a single cartridge casing from the parking lot, physical evidence that confirmed Marion fired just once, not in a panic or with excessive force. Forensic analysts examined both Marion's firearm and Floyd's clothing to determine the precise distance between them at the time of the shooting. Detectives conducted interviews with more than 15 witnesses who had been at Mama's bar that night. These testimonies created a complex picture, with some accounts supporting Marion's version of events, while others suggested Floyd's actions weren't threatening enough to justify lethal force. He was definitely being persistent, maybe even aggressive in how he was talking, one witness stated. But I don't know if I saw him as dangerous. He wasn't throwing punches or anything like that. Another witness contradicted this account. The way he kept coming at her, ignoring her, telling him to stop, it was intimidating. I was getting nervous watching it, and I wasn't even the one he was focused on. These conflicting perspectives highlighted the subjective nature of perceived threat, a factor that would become central to the legal proceedings. Based on the evidence gathered, prosecutors charged Marion with voluntary manslaughter, a Class B felony under Tennessee law that carries a potential sentence of 8 to 12 years. The charge reflects the prosecution's belief that Marion acted in the heat of passion but used force beyond what was reasonably necessary. An unexpected development occurred when the Shelby County District Attorney's Office announced its recusal from the case. Their statement cited potential conflicts of interest due to prior professional relationships with the deceased. Acknowledging Floyd's extensive connections with city officials through his community work, the Tennessee Attorney General's office appointed a special prosecutor from a neighboring county to ensure impartiality. Marion's defense team has built their case around Tennessee's self-defense laws, which permit the use of force when a person has a reasonable belief they face imminent danger. They've emphasized several key points. Marion attempted to retreat multiple times. Floyd had already displayed aggressive behavior by throwing her phone and a beer can, and the confrontation occurred in a dimly lit parking lot where Marion could reasonably fear for her safety. This is not a case about who Floyd was in the community, her attorney stated at a preliminary hearing. This is about what happened in those minutes in that parking lot and whether Miss Marion reasonably believed she was in danger. As the case proceeds toward trial, legal experts predict the outcome will hinge on how jurors interpret reasonable fear and whether Marion had other options available to her in those critical moments before she pulled the trigger. Beyond the specific details of this tragedy lies a series of broader lessons that affect us all. What happened between Pastor Floyd and Samantha Marion wasn't just a random occurrence. It represents patterns of human interaction that play out daily across our communities, though rarely with such devastating consequences. The progression from verbal disagreement to physical confrontation to lethal violence followed a predictable path of escalation. Each step along that path offered opportunities for intervention. When Floyd first approached Marion's table, when he threw her phone, when bar staff separated them, when bystanders watched the parking lot confrontation, each moment contained the possibility of a different outcome. Research shows that conflicts typically escalate in stages, with each party's actions intensifying the other's responses. A study from the American Psychological Association found that simple de-escalation techniques, like creating physical distance, using a calm tone, acknowledging the other person's perspective, can prevent up to 80% of violent confrontations. The most dangerous element in conflict situations is the perception of being trapped, explains Dr. Michael Thompson, professor of conflict resolution at Vanderbilt University. When someone feels cornered, physically or emotionally, their stress response activates, and fight or flight instincts take over. This psychological principle played out literally in the Mama's Bar parking lot. As Marion backed toward her vehicle with Floyd following, her options narrowed. Her choice to retrieve a firearm represents the ultimate expression of that fight or flight response. Tennessee's self-defense laws, like those in many states, hinge on the concept of reasonable fear. The statute permits deadly force when a person reasonably believes they face imminent danger of death or serious bodily injury. But what constitutes reasonable fear varies dramatically based on individual circumstances, past experiences, and even physical differences between parties involved. The law tries to balance two competing interests, explains Memphis-based defense attorney Jessica Wright. On one hand, people have the right to protect themselves from genuine threats. On the other hand, we don't want to encourage lethal responses to situations that could be resolved peacefully. This balance becomes particularly complex in cases involving disparities in physical size, social power, or when alcohol is involved, all factors present in the Floyd-Marion confrontation. What makes this case even more thought-provoking is that Pastor Floyd himself taught conflict resolution in his community programs. The man who helped young people navigate disagreements peacefully couldn't apply those same principles in his own moment of tension. This disconnect highlights how emotions can override training when stress levels peak. Despite this tragic end, Floyd's positive contributions to Memphis continue to resonate. His housing initiatives still provide shelter for families. His mentorship programs operate through new leadership. The community connections he built remain intact. We separate the work from the worker, explained a current leader at the Pursuit of God Transformation Center. The good that Pastor Floyd accomplished doesn't disappear because of one night of poor judgment. We honor his achievements while acknowledging human fallibility. This perspective offers a nuanced approach to remembering complicated figures, recognizing both their contributions and their contradictions. Now, I want to hear from you. How do you think communities can better prepare people to handle conflicts before they escalate to violence? What practical skills should we be teaching in schools, churches, and workplaces? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this exploration of human behavior in crisis moments has been valuable to you, please subscribe to our channel. We're building a community that looks beyond headlines to understand the deeper patterns that shape our society. The story of Pastor Ricky Floyd and Samantha Marion reminds us that none of us are immune to moments of poor judgment. Yet it also demonstrates how vital it is to develop skills for managing conflict peacefully. In a world where disagreements are inevitable, learning to navigate them without escalation isn't just a personal skill, it's a community necessity. As Memphis continues healing from this loss, perhaps the most fitting tribute to Pastor Floyd's work is renewed commitment to the principles he taught: compassion, communication, and finding common ground even in our most difficult conversations.